What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao. Thanks for joining us here for the news. Debate continues to rage here in Taiwan over the terms of a U.S.-Taiwan trade deal after the Trump administration announced a 20% tariff on most Taiwanese goods. In a special legislative hearing earlier on Monday, opposition parties blasted the government's trade strategy, accusing it of lacking transparency in negotiations. For more on this, Chris Gorin joins us from our newsroom. Chris, what are the main criticisms being leveled against the government here?
Well, as you say, Eric, the opposition is unhappy with the 20% tariff rate announced by the Trump administration last Thursday. They say the ruling party has failed in its negotiations with the U.S., especially because Taiwan's rate is higher than many of its neighboring countries. Now, among Taiwan's neighbors, Japan and South Korea both were able to secure among the lowest rates at 15%, while several Southeast Asian countries, including the Philippines, were tariffed at 19%. Taiwan and Vietnam are tied at 20%. Now, both lawmakers and industry have expressed concerns that Taiwan could lose its edge in the U.S. market due to these higher taxes. Meanwhile, President Lai Ching-te says that the 20% rate is only temporary, that a deal has been reached with the United States that will lower that rate even further. But that deal hasn't been made publicly available, and that has led to criticism from opposition lawmakers that the process lacks transparency. But the government says that this is standard practice for negotiations.
不确定性不要再拖延下去。可是我们现在发现，因为政府到目前为止还一直在讲说要继续谈判，而且不对外公开，神秘兮兮的，一直在盖牌的状况下，这对整个产业的发展、对政府的因应、对全民的安定非常的不利。
那我们回过头来，台美之间的这个保密协议，是由我国的驻美代表处以及 AIT 所签署。 这一个要求呢，基本上是这个保密协定要求依照国际惯例。
Now, to find out what comes next in U.S.-Taiwan trade, I sat down for an exclusive interview with former Taiwan Trade Representative and Minister without Portfolio John Deng, one of Taiwan's most experienced negotiators with the United States. I want to start with some recent news. Over the weekend, there was an interview with U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer, in which he said that he doesn't expect the recently announced tariff rates to be reduced anytime soon. Now, it seems to be a little bit at odds with what Taiwan President Lai Ching-te said, which is that the 20% tariff recently announced for Taiwan was only temporary, and that it would be reduced soon once a new trade deal is announced. Do you think that this 20% tariff rate will go down in the near future?
I think this depends upon how much and what we can offer to the United States. One, whether we can open up our market. Second, how much investment you can put in the United States. Third, how much deficit, trade surplus you have with the United States. Of course, from Taiwan's perspective, 20% is a little bit high. And we hope we all, the society, business community, and the whole society wants to have a lower rate. That's the goal.
Before you left government, as the trade representative for Taiwan, you actually led the negotiations on the U.S.-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade. And when these reciprocal tariffs were announced in April, actually there were ongoing negotiations for the second part of that agreement at that time, which included agricultural market access in Taiwan. And that raises the question, now that this new deal seems to be being negotiated to avoid reciprocal tariffs, what's going on with the Initiative for 21st Century Trade, and what's its relationship to this current deal?
I also observed that Trump administration pretty much already put this agreement aside. However, I'm not worried of that, since this agreement was signed by leaders of both countries, was approved by both Congress, by Taiwan Parliament, legislature, as well as by U.S. House and Senate. So this agreement is fully has full force of a international agreement.
Obviously, these trade negotiations have been very stressful for Taiwan, and a lot of these tariff actions that the U.S. has taken has been through executive power. In other words, when there's a new U.S. president in 3.5 years, all of these tariffs could disappear on day one. All of these actions could be overturned. And I'm just wondering, how does all of this constant cycle of trade tensions affect the long-term relationship between Taiwan and the United States?
Trump, his approach looks like, I think, caused many dissatisfaction to foreign countries, including Taiwan. But we also notice that he was elected by the United States. And the imbalance was very well seen. Everybody knows there are imbalances in the United States. As we just discussed, huge government deficit, huge trade deficit. Those are need to be addressed. Even without President Trump, it's another president. They still have to face to correct this imbalance. So to Taiwan, it is very clear. I mean, to our advantage, we have to work with the United States. It's to our advantage. I often quote this traditional Chinese saying, as we may lose some battles, but we win the war.
And do you think Taiwan is winning the war?
Of course. See how our economy, see how much we export, see very low unemployment rate, see our national income. We win the war.
So you can see that even one of Taiwan's most experienced negotiators can't be sure about how this deal will turn out, but viewers can be sure we'll be following it closely. Eric?
Thanks for that update, Chris. Now, it's Chris Gorn reporting live from the TaiwanPlus newsroom. Taiwan's cabinet may amend a special budget to exclude wealthy individuals from receiving about $300 in government handouts.
普发现金1万啊，不管你的精神是要来刺激消费或者是社会福利，那么都应该要排付。在过去的几次做法也都是有排付。
These cash handouts are part of a special budget the legislature passed in July for security infrastructure and U.S. tariff relief. The inclusion of the handouts has been criticized by the cabinet, which says it may challenge it in the Constitutional Court. However, President Lai Ching-te signed the bill into law last week. Opposition lawmakers say they will use money earmarked for national security for the cash payments if the cabinet tries to block certain people from accessing it.
不用举债，同时也可以不用让民进党的绿油油们从中来赚钱，可以让百姓真正的拿到结结实实、踏踏实实的1万元现金。
President Lai has said that the government aims to begin the handouts by the end of October. There's help for residents in central and southern Taiwan as they continue to deal with flooding. Premier Zuo Rongtai and local officials are there to oversee the recovery, and a government plan to strengthen flood prevention is in the works. Irene Lin reports.
Firefighters get a 60-year-old resident out of his collapsed house and rush her to the hospital. After her home was destroyed after a tropical storm and a week of near nonstop rain in July. She's one of the 50 people injured in the aftermath of the recent storm front that tore through central and southern Taiwan. 3 people have died and 4 are missing due to accidents on flooded streets. Inside homes, yellow mud covers the floor and floodwater blocks entrances. Locals say the community is not new to floods.
因为这种落雨毛水嘛，表示就是溪内底甲阮倒灌去来阮的室内迄个排水沟，造成淹水。所以这个问题因为有几届啊过啊，我嘛足清楚的。但是一直拢还未想到改善的方式安尼。
Over 3,100 people threatened by landslides have been evacuated from their mountain homes near the southern city of Kaohsiung. Response crews say they've been making progress in cleaning up the roads in the past few days, but landslides kept happening. Local officials have been touring the most affected areas to oversee recovery and are working to get residents' demands heard in the central government.
排水的问题，那包括征讨来对怎么样让征讨没用水，都会纳入到我们系统化的思考。那呈报中央争取经费，我们希望能够让我们嘉义县的抗洪能量越来越强。
Premier Zhuo Rongtai has visited Tainan and Kaohsiung to monitor repairs of public roads and private property. He says a government plan to upgrade Taiwan's drainage facilities is underway.
接下来这个礼拜，我们会通过未来4年的一个防水的大计划，以及丹纳斯台风的一些特别条例。我认为这个都是一方面因应现在大家看到的状况，也因应我们未来要整个更大幅度在历年治水工程之后，把这些源头、把这些末端工作再把它做好。
Central and southern regions are known for their traditional industries, such as screw manufacturing. As this area braces for more extreme weather in this typhoon season, scholars say more transparency about flood risk is needed for local industries.
从一些法令规范制度面，针对一些土地利用的限制也好，或者是引导也好去做，比较容易发生淹水地区，这些风险要跟民众揭露。譬如说我们的工业区，或者民众单独设立一些高价值的工厂，尽量的不要在这些容易淹水的范围里面。
The Central Weather Administration predicts the rain will stop Wednesday. Some areas are already seeing floodwaters receding. So far, residents who have experienced heavy flooding in their homes may be eligible for subsidies up to $1,700. But with more rain inevitable, residents and officials want flood prevention plans in place before the next storm hits. Leon Lian and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
A village warden in Taiwan says she will fight a government decision to remove her from office after she failed to give up her Chinese citizenship. The village warden, named Deng was elected in Hualien County in eastern Taiwan in 2022. She moved to the country in the late 90s after marrying a Taiwanese citizen and later received a national ID card. Taiwan's laws require elected officials to renounce any other foreign nationality before taking office. Deng told local media she was unable to give up her Chinese citizenship because China doesn't recognize Taiwanese nationality. Taiwanese model makers are once again taking home top honors from a miniatures competition in the Philippines. The Taiwan team won 4 gold, 3 silver, and 1 bronze medal from the 2025 Philippines Scale Model Show in Manila. Among the winners was last year's gold medalist Huang Kangjia, whose model of a Philippine armored fighting vehicle took a top prize this year.
这个是一个我们台湾叫做水鸭子的炮车，然后它是挡气登陆使用的，我们陆战队也有使用。然后这个用车的用的国家其实不多，有美国、菲律宾跟我们。然后这个菲律宾的它涂装很特别，是叫城市迷彩，就是说它在城市里面使用的。
The annual competition brings together model makers from across Asia to show off their intricate miniatures, from military vehicles to fantasy figures and cityscapes. And thanks again for tuning in today for What's Up Taiwan. Grab our app to get more of our stories on your phone. Finally, check out this underwater robot capturing sea creatures in the southern Atlantic. I'm Eric Gao. Take care. We'll see you next time.